Two of them were obligations. In your list there, none of it speaks to the obligations. Our chair was part of an audit, which we failed because we're not having two regularly scheduled meetings. One, the full board meeting, we're in compliance with. The second is the public hearing. Public hearings and full board meetings, according to the controller's office, are two entirely different meetings, which was news to a lot of community boards. We all failed that mandate. But part of what I had proposed earlier was putting a committee meeting together to meet that mandate. The other two issues or the other two committees that I suggested to you address the concerns that you are discussing right now, which is how does something fall into one category and not the other, which is why names aren't important. And I think that's what you're focused on. You're trying to protect people and their committees. But if you have a simple municipal services committee, which handles everything government related, is fine. You then separate your land use, housing, and anything that falls into economic development. So those are your two main committees. So municipal services can handle anything, the parks related, capital related, anything, again, city related, sanitation related. And then we have two obligations. And right now, even after the audit, we did not meet the standard for public hearing. We have to do that. We were audited a year ago. We failed. All the community boards failed, but we're still not meeting that mandate, even though we're required to. So I want you guys to be mindful of that when you're putting this together. And the reason why names are not important, I know Carla spoke to saying earlier that she wanted, it's okay to have joint committee meetings. We have 47 board members right now. You put a third on each committee, whether it's 4 committees, 5 committees, 6 committees, whatever it is, you're going to have overlap. You have to be mindful, especially for the newer board members, that you don't want to waste their time in having joint meetings where, do they count twice? Those are the types of things that you have to consider. What is quorum on a joint committee if you have the same committee person in 2 different committees? So I think, please be mindful as you're putting this list together, the composition of those committees, who's going to chair those committees. Again, I heard someone say earlier that you're going to have multiple people chairing a committee. I think that that's ineffective. You need to have one chair of a committee, regardless of what the issue is. But, it creates more efficiency that way. But those are my concerns.
Okay, so thank you, George, as always, for your input. I did ask the question about how you count a quorum for a joint committee meeting. So the answer was you add up both memberships of those committees together, and then you count 51% of everyone present, if you're going to call it a joint.
That's the math. That's the formula.
Yeah. So I think we know how to calculate what a quorum is if, say, parks and environmental concerns meets together, which we did back, I think, in March. So, that part I don't really see being the problem.
We should give the floor to the other members too to speak.
Yeah, are there hands raised? I can't.
So if we split it in 2, then each committee will have 26 members. So if we have 27, then there'll be a quorum. So no, if we have 2 big committees, the municipal and
economic.
No. Municipal. Put everything under municipal. And there was another one.
Sorry, John. Please be mindful that our bylaws state that you have to be. Obviously, everybody's on the full committee, on the full board.
Yeah.
So that everybody's a member of the full board, and then everybody has to be a member of one committee according to our bylaws.
George,
So-
you mentioned, quick question. You mentioned,
You mentioned two committees, George, municipal and what was the other one?
I didn't necessarily have a nifty name for it, but it would be the land use, economic development, housing committee, anything related to, zoning, planning. It was I called it the planning committee, but that it didn't stick. But again, it's not. Don't view it as two committees. You still have four. So you have the half. I called it the half committee, which was basically what the standard is for public hearings. You have to have a quorum. It's 20% of your board members. So again, Carla, what I'm talking about when I'm saying you're doing joint committees, if you have 15 people on one committee, then you're going to count 30, and your quorum is going to be that, or 7.5, or is it going to be 15? That's what I'm talking about. So again, you're increasing the membership, and that's why I say you have to be mindful of, because you're going to have overlap. If the more committees you have, you're going to have overlap.
The thing about doing it that way, George, it is going to be long. If our meetings are already long, the issue that we had is that was going to make it even longer, where if we condensed it a little, have, let's say, one more, then it's going to still be long, but not as long as it's just those proposed.
Our meetings are long now, and we have 5 people on a committee.
I'm sorry, Tony speaking.
I'm sorry. Are there any other boards that have only 2 committees?
No,
Because I went looking around, I was trying to.
no, there
understand.
aren't. It's never been done.
Right, I was looking around trying to understand it and get an idea. So I was looking at.
you got like 4.
Right, 4 of
Yeah.
it. I was just curious.
All right, why don't you ask Denise if she has something to say? Carl, Sheila.
Call, any advice, Paul?
Hello?
Yeah.
Any advice?
Can I speak?
Yeah, waiting for you.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. I still prefer the 5 committee or the 3 committee. The issue that we have, and we don't enforce it, when a person is assigned to a committee and they constantly not show up, we don't take any action. And the only way we're going to get people to come out to the committee meetings is take action when they don't show up for 3 meetings without a viable excuse. And we haven't been doing it. So that's why we don't meet the quorums at the meeting. I have no problem shrinking the amount of committees. But, I don't want to shrink it to a point where it doesn't work. Because one thing I don't like is co-chairs. And the reason for that, every committee I ever been on that had co-chairs, they may come in as friends, but when the committee is eliminated, they leave as enemies, because they always, when 2 co-chairs don't agree on anything, and they go after each other and they take it personal. And we have enough dissension on the board without adding the co-chairs at each other's throat. But, whether you come up with 3 or 5 is fine with me, but I'm dead set against co-chairs because they don't work. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anybody else on the?
Yeah, can I say something?
Of course.
Okay, all right. Hello?
We have to
Yeah.
hear you.
For me, it's the time issue. It works for me. I have other obligations, and it works for me when the land use meets. Also, I think if you put too many committees together, it's going to take a lot. It's going to be very time consuming, because I know on land use we can be there for two hours, sometimes even more. And I don't know how that's going to work if you're going to have 3 committees together with that one. That's I don't think we should have, like, I agree that it does come together with the housing and the economics and the land use. I think that can work, but if you're gonna put more than that, it's gonna be bananas. I don't have, I'm trying to find a nice way of saying it because it's gonna be so time consuming. I don't know how that would work. Because like I said, land use takes a lot of time up, as far as I know. I remember it was 2 hours and sometimes we had to cut it short and then reconvene for another session. So I don't know how that's really gonna work. And also, I agree with Paul with enforcing the rules. If someone is not showing up and we're missing quorum, what then do we do? I mean, there's got to be some understanding there. I think people feel that they don't need to show up. You know, I think something needs to be said clear cut where everyone understands that there's maybe possibly a consequence, like maybe the first time a warning, a second time a letter, I don't know, and then a third time maybe go before someone from the Bronx Borough's office, you know, because there has to be some kind of consequences. Not making all these meetings and us not making quorum seems like a waste of time for everyone, you know, and all our time is precious. I believe all of us work and we do have other obligations. And I don't think it's fair for the committee or our community as a whole. And that's all I have to say on that.
Thanks, Denise.
I could say something to Denise.
Yeah.
So that there's a clear understanding. Denise, when we group the committees together, some committees don't even meet for like once or twice a year. So it's just in name, but it's not, you understand? It's not, not each committee is going to be meeting every month.
But if they're assigned to that now new grouping, they have to show up.
They have to show up.
You should be showing up.
Because they're part of that new, group, that new committee.
They're probably not meeting because there's nothing on their agenda that, you know, and it'll add to the creativity, I think.
It will.
And
But what she's saying is right. I haven't enforced it.
Yeah.
People have been out, they've been absent. You've been like, get to it, right? You got to let people know. If not, 3 votes. I mean, if you miss 3 combined between full board and committee,
Thank you.
then we can vote you off. So you're all absolutely right. I do need to hold people accountable.
No, and you do. I asked you for guidance with one of my committee members, and you know, you told me tough love email.
Right.
And I did.
But I will be, because we're not getting anywhere. So I will be very, I will monitor it closely. Thank you.
Anybody else on the call? Ms. Cloud, Grayson,
I think that's it, right? Who else is on?
Just a little.
Ms. Hemmings.
I have a question.
Yep.
Back to me again. The public hearing, fulfill all the requirements for public hearing. Will that be considered like a meeting night?
The what?
The public hearing. Yes, Sam. So we have, what I have on the list is public hearing, the full board meeting, right?
But the public hearings, we can have it right before the board meeting. We've done that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think his plan
I'll
was
take it.
separate.
So that's what I was trying to, George, could you hear us?
But it's still going to be an issue where if we have the board meeting and we do it right before.
The public hearing, I think, when we spoke before, the public hearing has to be on a separate night from the board altogether, right?
It doesn't have to be. It can be the same night. So just so this is what was confusing. Our general board meetings, or all general board meetings, require a public gallery session. We always, I guess, mistook this to mean that since the public had an opportunity to speak during the public gallery, that counted as the public hearing. According to the controller's office, we misinterpreted that rule, and therefore we have to have. Now, the question becomes, and this is the reason why I want separate meetings, we are one of only a handful of community boards. Everybody else is in person. I could say everybody else in the Bronx is in person. we're one of, again, a handful across the city that have hybrid. And again, there are people sitting at that table that have not come to full board meetings. So we do this, and if you have a separate meeting, then that means you have to have two different WebExes. You have to have a WebEx for the public hearing, stop that meeting, end it, and then have board members log in again for another meeting. I'm perfectly fine if the board voted to do away with the hybrid format so that we were strictly in person, so that we could then do that. Because technically speaking, you can do it, but it has to be two separate meetings. And how do you differentiate? Because again, everything we're doing, we're putting on YouTube. We're having minutes. There have to be minutes for it. So you have to have separate everything.
Separate comments.
We've done it.
George, can I ask a question?
Sure.
You were stating that there are people sitting that does not
Yes,
attend.
Tolene, I was talking about you.
Say it again?
Yes, Tolene, I was talking about you.
Okay, but you're saying it in a way that like I don't show up. We all know what my situation is, and if you don't, I can give you.
I understand, Tolene. I'm just making a point. If you're taking offense to it, then I can't help
No,
you.
I'm not taking offense, but just so you can be clear, to make sure that if there's anyone that's not here that knows that I had a heart transplant, that it's clear that that's why I don't come to meetings. That I am on virtually with all meetings.
I mean, and that's what the hybrid makes allowances for.
Exactly.
There are people who take advantage of that, and those are the ones we need to call out, not the ones that we made the exceptions for because it's valid health reasons.
You know, I'm not taking offense, I'm just being clear. because-
No, I don't want to think that us talking.
Yeah,
Tolene,
May I?
the chairman point.
So can we put another stipulation that there's a certain amount?
Madam Chair, may I say something?
No, finish speaking.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Finish speaking. Hold on,
Yeah.
George. Now speak.
If,
I'm
if
just saying
I knew the meeting was going to be downstairs tonight, I would have been there. But as far as I knew, the meeting was going to be in the conference room, which I can't access because the lift's been out of order since March, which is highly ridiculous. How long it takes to repair a motor. I would have been there if I knew it was in the main floor tonight. But I didn't know until 5 minutes to 7 that it was in the main area. And it's too late for me to get together to get over there because I would just be arriving now and I would have missed the whole meeting. So if they're gonna hold meetings on the main floor, they should say it's gonna be on the main floor so I could attend. And the only one I knew that we had on the main floor, besides that special meeting we had with Congressman Torres, is the full board meeting. Everything else is in the conference room. And unfortunately, I can't access the conference room. So I'm being discriminated against because I can't go without a walker. And so I shouldn't be held absent or anything else because of the room, the stuff being held in the conference room. That damn lift has to be fixed. So I'm able to attend my meeting. Right now, I cannot. And if it lasts any longer, I'm going to file suit against the city. That's all I have to say.
Right, okay, we do have Ms. Judith Benitez, who's part of this committee. Did you have any comments, suggestions, input? The ones we've been discussing since last year. Because I think next step, we should kind of like see how we should to them to make that suggestion and we vote on it.
And is it also gonna be where, should I say, is it gonna be gonna pick one and then go to the board and let them just vote on it, or is it gonna go?
They're
down to
they're
two?
gonna pick one and make that suggestion.
Okay, so
and
we're
vote
gonna
on it.
pick one tonight.
That the committee members,
Yeah.
with our input, because we gave our input. No, but your input was important. Thank you so much. You're gonna be part of the deciding factor of what they suggest.
Saying.
Yeah.
What's the exception? Is it health? Is it like
Yes.
At our full board meeting, I'm gonna go over that so that everybody's fully clear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause some people think it's probably
The thing is, you're allowed three. You're allowed three absences, excused absences.
Yes.
But we're gonna go over that. I think everybody has to have our bylaws. Everybody needs to be fully aware. Everybody needs to have the calendars once we consolidate when we're meeting, who's on what, so that there's no confusion. So we'll make sure that happens.
And we gotta make it clear that they're interchangeable pieces, because people think that once it's like locked in, that's it. It's no, it's not. It's flexibility.
George, is there a way we can turn the AC down? I mean, put it up a little, it's cold.
Yeah, I'll turn it off.
Once you put it out here, people think that it's.
They can't.
It's gonna, things are gonna move around.
Because remember also, whenever we speak on here, we got to present it, you guys got to present it to the full board, and they're going to have comments and concerns. So this probably won't even happen in our first meeting either. We have new members that they need to understand what the committee is, what committee they're on, what's their purpose on the committee,
You can write in the report, we can write like a little paragraph of what each committee covers. You know, like we can give them that reading material. Thank you. We can give them reading material before.
Okay, in reference to what I'm looking at now,
Do you want to speak louder so they hear you? Or no, it doesn't. We'll try not even.
I'm looking at suggestion 2, which is land use, housing, and economic development. I like the way it stands, okay? In reference to section 2, public safety, transportation, parks, and environmental. I don't really see a problem with it, except for transportation might overlap sometimes into the first grouping. Because you have certain projects and whatnot that deal with land use and housing. Okay. So that might be an overlapping of for all of us. In reference to the section, I'm looking at the second part of this scenario here. Health and Human Services, education, library can stand like what I see here on this document. And the full board public hearing is good as it is. Now the fifth column, executive committee, and these are the committees that you're considering as standalone.
Yeah.
Well, they meet, as you say, they don't meet regularly.
Right.
So they're out there.
Yeah.
So they'll have to fit them in where it's necessary, because a lot of us have standing dates for our meetings, except for, the only concern I have is with transportation, and with transportation can cross over into, without confusing anyone, when there's an issue that comes up in land use and or housing, because that is an important component, as well as the fact that it is capital improvement, and it really does touch on all three subjects in the first column.
Yeah.
Do you think that one should move to that first column?
I think it might. You can possibly, if you like, try it and see how it works.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a great suggestion. I
see
mean,
how it works.
Can I ask a question? How are the committees right now as far as member numbers? Because also, let's say, the transportation in that committee is one committee. I mean, it's always going to be the one that's heavier, but are all the members going to be more heavy on that committee of transportation, land use, and everything compared to like parks? Like, I really don't know too much about
It should be like an even.
It should be.
there will be.
Well, it's something that you were talking about, that some of them, like housing and what was the other one, land use committee, they don't really meet that often. My committee might meet monthly, And the only reason that's is being generated by liquor licenses.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why you're having almost a meeting every month.
Yeah.
Okay, there'll be times when I won't have a meeting, like this week I won't have a meeting. But it will be that'll be the one committee that's gonna generate people for the committee. Okay.
Transportation and economic development.
Yeah, we always have, I always have almost a full complement for my committee. There's not that many of you that have a full complement to your committee. I don't know why, but it depends on the interest and
Yeah.
what people
Or,
think.
I'm always calling folks to get here when there's voting.
The problem is there, some of the items that's being brought before the board is mostly economic development and, like public safety or transportation. You don't have that much of the stuff, like, unless, like cultural affairs, library situation, that only comes up like if they're having, like, say, a ladies' day, event, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, something.
Land use has been coming up a lot.
Yeah, that is just gonna come up.
Issues change
Yeah.
for the year. Yes, they change.
Well, I get that.
And that should be on the same line as transportation. So it's not
Exactly.
No, I'm gonna have to divide it evenly.
No, like even though you divide it, like I'm just saying for argument use, like land use, economic, transportation all had 10 members each, right? But cultural and health had 2 members each. I was just making sure that.
No, that's not how it's gonna be divided.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not gonna be like you get 10, you get 5. It's like
No,
this
it's
one
not
gets
that you
10.
get 10, you get 5 of the same, how many members are in that committee? Because for instance, if economics, land use each have like 10 people, like they're just heavier members, and let's say health and cultural.
What do you redistribute that? Redistribute that way.
No, of course, but I'm just saying, the way that puts it in on paper, like it's gonna kind of show that.
It's not. So for example, let's say we're going with group 2.
Yeah.
Section 1 is gonna have 15, section 2, 15, section 3, 15.
Okay, so.
It's gonna be
I'm not
evenly
thinking of
distributed.
board members, I'm just thinking about what makes sense.
And the other one is, as we know how people are, let's say like our meeting comes up and we have liquor licenses. A lot of people are not interested in that. So after a while, when you get to feel the fact that we're gonna have liquor licenses for the next couple of months, they're gonna drop out. Whether they are part of that cluster, they're gonna drop out
Oh, come on.
because it's not their dedication there.
I mean, and that's when I'm gonna have to come in as the enforcer. If you've been out for 3, combination of 3 meetings, and we bring it to the board and we can vote you off. And that's how we remove that person from the committee or the board. And then it makes it easier to meet quorum because now it's one less person that hasn't been attending.
Carl, you were saying something?
And that's why they do this surveys.
Ursula's hand is up. Ursula, her hand is up.
Oh, I see. Yeah, go Ursh.
Hey guys, so I want to say this, like, if you have a committee meeting, the committee votes to approve or disapprove, we don't need to hash this out at a board meeting. That's wasting our time. If these grown people cannot make a meeting or they're not interested, then that's their loss. You're supposed to hand in your minutes, and I send them out when I send out the board minutes. And the only thing you're supposed to do at the board meeting is call for the vote. We're not supposed to have another committee meeting.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If we didn't have on the schedule that committee meeting, we should not be subjected to, full board should not be subjected to a mini committee meeting in a board meeting.
That didn't take place with the committee.
Okay, and that seems to happen a couple of times this past year.
So even like this meeting that we have it now, once we set that storm in place, it should just be presented and that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
But we gotta send them the reading material, right?
Send them
Beforehand.
Yeah.
They can reach out to you if they have any questions, or you, anybody on the committee. Yes.
So I have my hand raised again.
Wait, I'm not finished, please. And I just want to say, just my opinion from all the years of being there, I don't think co-chairs are going to work. I don't see how this is going to be effective. That's just my opinion.
Well, I agree with that, Ursula, because the fact that your co-chairs technically are the old chairs, is all the chairs of those committees, and they technically, we're all co-chairs within that group, that section. Am I correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I took from it. Like,
I hear you, Shirley.
That's what I say, yeah.
She's saying it won't, it's not gonna work.
Go ahead, George.
So to Judith's point, that's why I say you had to be mindful about the attendance. Your attendance should be greater for at least 1/3 of the board, so that when you do put the minutes together, you already have the basis of consensus when they're voting at the full board meeting. So if you have 21 people on the committee, the fewer the committees, the better, because you can put greater numbers of board members on a committee. They'll be more knowledgeable, and they can speak to an issue. If a board member that doesn't know what's going on asks a question, that's what leads to the great conversation when we come to full board meetings, is that people, because it's only 4 or 5 people on a committee, they don't understand what's going on. So they want to have greater, and they don't attend the meeting. So that's why I'm saying you have to be mindful that if you put the greater the number of board members on a committee and the less committees you have, you are now not wasting their time, because when it comes up for a full board vote, you will already basically have what do you call it, the majority for the vote. If you have, again, a third of board members, 47, a third of 47 on each of those committees, depending on how many committees you have.
George, did you hit record for the meeting?
I did.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you, George.
Thank you.
You're the man.
Okay, so Carla, do you want to move to come up with a?
Okay, so does everybody feel like we're at the point where we're ready to propose? Okay. So I'm looking at suggestion number 2, which originally said land use, housing, economic development, and business. And then there was a suggestion from one bylaws committee member saying move transportation and capital improvements to that committee. How does the committee feel about that? Okay. Then that would leave the next committee, committee number 2, since we didn't name them, public safety, parks and recreation, and environmental concerns. We all okay with that?
I think public safety needs to go back, follow transportation into the other meeting.
Yeah, I think so.
Which one, into the first one?
The first one.
Public safety, okay. So with that suggestion from one of our bylaws committee members, committee number 1 in the option we're discussing now would be land use, housing, economic development, and business services, and public safety, and transportation. And
You don't think that's too much?
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna turn into the 2 committees.
I think public safety should stay.
So leave it the way it was.
Yeah.
Just add transportation if anything.
okay, so that's what I've got. Got land use, housing, economic development, and transportation in option number 1, or committee number 1. In committee number 2, I've got public safety that we just agreed should stay there. Parks and recreation and environmental concerns. So are we all good with that? Okay. Committee number 3, Health and Human Services, Education and Youth Services, and Library and Cultural Affairs. All good with that? Committee members? Okay. Um,
Continue.
he's asking if you need water.
Water.
Yeah.
Well,
He's gonna get a piece.
there you go. Man, then there.
Excuse me,
Or the-
Carla, Carla,
I'm sorry?
can you repeat number 3?
Committee number 3 will consist of Health and Human Services, Education and Youth Services, and Library and Cultural Affairs.
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
She was handmade.
Oh,
No,
Sheila,
it's not.
what's the question?
No, her hand's not raised. That's the mute button.
Okay, she took it down.
Oh.
She just took it down.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I saw it for a second. Yeah, let's go ahead. Then we've got full board meeting and public hearings that we all have to participate in. And then we have the standalone committees. Executive committee, bylaws, which is an ad hoc. We only convene when we're called upon to update the bylaws. And discipline is a standalone by mandate from the borough president's office, so we can't do anything with that. Thankfully, they haven't been called upon to do anything, but yeah, they're there in case.
So before they finalize, do you have any suggestions?
No, I think the committees like that is better. It hopefully will get more participation. And then also I think grouping too many together, it's going to be sounding like a very long meeting. That doesn't really sound conducive, like George was saying, to somebody like me who's like, time is a big thing, you know, and sitting on a meeting for 3 or 4 hours is not it, to be honest, you know, so I have to agree. So I think what the way that you have it grouped, I like that.
Okay, so do you want me, just for the record, to repeat it one more time, just so everybody is ready on the committee to vote? Okay, so, committee number 1 is land use, housing, economic development and business services, and transportation and capital improvement. Committee number 1. Then committee number 2 is public safety, parks and recreation, and environmental concerns. Then committee number 3, health and human services, education and youth services, library and cultural affairs. So those are the proposed 3 new standing committees. We can't touch discipline. That's its own standalone committee. So those are the 3. Does anybody have any questions? Do you need me to repeat anything? Nope. Okay, so is the committee ready to vote to support the proposed 3 new consolidated committees?
Yes.
You guys all ready? Okay, so I'm calling the vote.
I would like to make a motion.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to make a motion that we accept the changes, consolidation of the committees as per standing committees. As per presented by Carla. Need a second.
Okay, we need a second. Okay.
Let me just say this to everyone. Please be mindful of the fact that we are human And even though we're combining all of these committees together, it's not a guarantee that you will always have a forum at these committees. So you can't kick yourself in the butt because you don't have a forum. So please be mindful of that.
I also want to be mindful that it's not in stone, it's still a trial and error situation, so we shouldn't get caught up in them because, again, assessment will be done by the chair later and the executive committee to see what's working and what's not working. So we should get boggled down in this is here and that, and I think we get too much caught up in that.
I do think we
Can I
need to
make a
address
recommendation on the,
Yeah, that's
I
the only
think
issue.
before
I see.
being here, we need
Yeah.
to figure that out. And so, right, my suggestion was that we keep the chairs, but I hear the recommendations that you're thinking it's too many chairs.
No, well,
Co-chairs?
Co-chairs.
Can-
I'm sorry. I have to get.
can I make a recommendation?
No, what I
Hold on,
mean,
Carl, hold on.
my suggestion was that each chair of each committee now moves on to that bigger committee as co-chair.
Yeah.
Because you each have your expert experience and when a certain matter comes, you're going to chair that part. Land use comes, Carl will chair that part. When public safety comes, you chair that portion. When capital transportation, you chair that portion. Education, that portion. Environmental, that portion. And so that's what I was suggesting, that co-chairs of each now become co-chairs of the consolidated ones.
And the other thing is we have to remember, like you said, time is of the essence. Two of us might have something important that night. So there'll be two on the docket for discussion. And that's when we become co-chairs.
Yes.
And that's when time stretches out.
Yes.
And we have to be aware of that.
It's gonna be more collaborative.
Yeah, but we're gonna find what's gonna happen is that you'll see as it goes along that it'll be every month it might be a different subject.
Right.
Or there might be a time when we need to bring two committee subjects together in that group. That might happen, like transportation and housing might come up together.
Right.
So,
So
so you gotta.
Carl had a question.
Overcall.
Carl, you got a question? I got a question. afterwards.
Yeah,
Carl.
no, I have a recommendation on the motion.
Okay.
That this be, this would be for this term until June as a test to see if it works out. If it's working out, in June, we can approve it permanently. If it's not, we can go back to the drawing board.
But do we want to wait till June, or what if even before? Test it out for a year? Okay.
Well,
Okay.
what I said, we can put it up to June. In other
Okay.
words, if it fails, like in January, we can go
Yeah.
back to the drawing board. That's what I'm trying to say. We don't want to be set. So let's do it as a trial until and if we have no problems by June, we'll make it permanent.
That works.
So on the second, we have public safety and economic development, or no?
No, public safety is under the other.
Wait, no, committee number 2.
Yeah.
Public safety, parks, and environmental.
So let's just say for that, so when are we meeting? Like, they're gonna have a set date for, so like say we have a public safety meeting with the fire department, and they, their presentation like almost an hour, but then Carla has one, and that's gonna take an hour, and then another person, that's 3
We can
hours.
prioritize. In May, I'm making up the months. May, you do fire department. In June, you do environmental. Whoever is more urgent.
Also, we're not gonna do all of them at the
We
same
don't
time.
have to. We don't have to.
Rats are really the most important thing.
Right. Don't start.
That's my big thing. Rats.
All right. So let's move on to the next. So then,
as long as we have a bylaws committee that's been approved for this coming year, we can change anything that majority of the board thinks needs
If it's a
changing.
concern.
So,
Do you need to make another motion now that we clarified how the chairs, do you need to take a vote on that? On how that structure is gonna work? So it doesn't come back. No, I think we should set that so that when you're presenting, you present the full thing. These are the committees, this is the structure of leadership for those as well.
okay.
So we don't have to go back and vote on it in October.
Okay, so the chair.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, like economics is in the same line as land use and housing. So you're saying we prioritize, but what about the next 3 months? We got something very interesting in land use, then her meeting won't be able to take place. Right? That's what you're saying?
Well, presentations is different than, a presentation is different than like matters that we need to vote on.
Yeah.
I guess it's about more scheduling.
Yeah.
Really collaborating, scheduling, figuring out like, listen, my committee has this every year, like we need to pick a month. And this is
Right.
our month.
I think it'll work.
A lot more bonding.
I think it's
Right.
about the planning of the time. It's not the time, it's the planning of the use of the time. You understand? Just like how you said the fire safety, that can be one thing, that's a presentation. Maybe that'll be a standalone and there'll still be a meeting. But it's just really about how are we using the time?
Right, yeah, we have to really coordinate with these consolidated committees because
Exactly.
it takes me 2 months to get a speaker, like say from Department of Sanitation lined up. So I have to make sure that my new
Something in the chat.
co-chairs on parks and transportation didn't also book somebody,
Right.
right? So,
So can you present it again and then take the vote again? Should you do that with a new structure?
okay, well, so I think that's a separate vote. And here, give me a hand here, John, because you're like better at this than I am. But so we have a motion about the committee structure. Now we have a proposal to vote on the
leadership
chairing of the committee structure.
So let's have two separate motions, 2 votes.
Right, so I've got you and Judy down, motion and second for the new committee structure. But how would we phrase?
Can I give a recommendation that we lump it together? Because if one passes and the other one doesn't, then we're right back at this. How many months
So
are we
then
going to be
the
talking about that?
motion, so I call to the motion
Okay.
to include the committee structure, so both are covered on the motion.
Yes.
Okay,
So just word it so that
So make a motion that, we accept the new committee structure, based on the proposed Paula's proposal. And of the, what is it, 4 committees?
3.
3 committees. The 3 committee structure, and with the
and leadership will be as such.
leadership.
Will be as such and just spell it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so leadership will
Be
shared.
co-chair, chair, as designated by the chairperson.
Each committee.
No, not the chairperson, I mean the board chair.
My microphone number. Sorry.
Microphone check.
I do have a question on here. The bylaws state that the position of our chair dictates who the leadership is. So anyway, our You're stating now that leadership is going to do what? I'm a little confused.
That chairs are going to be co-chairs. Chairs of each committee, the way it stands, are not going to move to co-chairs of each committee. So, for example, let me see that sheet.
So they're gonna chair of that.
Right. So, for example, committee number one.
I guess what I'm asking then is, you're not necessarily reducing committees, you're just changing.
No, we're reducing committees. The leadership structure will be that each chair will now be co-chair, and when that, for example, when the land use matter comes, Carl will chair that part. When the housing matter comes up, Rob will chair that portion. Economic development, Ms. Benitez will chair that portion, and so forth.
All right, so let me ask it simply. What's the composition of that committee?
They basically saying they feel precedent, like everybody is just co-chairing. They are each.
No, but I'm saying who's going to be on. So, for example, Judith has 5 people on her committee. So her 5 people are going to be economic development.
No,
They're going to be.
no, the composition is that I'm going to select. We have 47, 15 for 1, 15 for 2, 15 for 3, and we're actually at 47, so I have to figure out what the other 2 will be placed. I would probably place them in that first one since we have more matters that are going to come across that one.
Yeah, well, land use is the biggest.
Wait, hold on. Suppose somebody comes up to you and says to you, see, this ties to what you're saying. Suppose my people don't want to be part of the massive first selection, okay, and they want to remove themselves. Are you just saying that you're going to tell everybody to go back to the baseline and then you're going to select where they're going to go without saying they don't have a right to decide?
They do. They do. I'm gonna have a conversation with them, but for the most part, I've never had an issue when for the most part, board members have been like, this is my interest, but you can place me wherever I am needed. And so if that does come up, then I will cross that bridge when I get there, but it's never been an issue for me in these past 2 years.
That was like, so it's about, like the numbers in the committee, because if you have a line, you already got 5 of them.
Right.
So then if I'm transportation, this is already filled up, I have to go to another. That was what I was.
Right. But ultimately, I do have the authority to place.
Of course, yeah.
And if I have to, we have to we got to work it out.
But then we also have to leave it open that you may speak.
Right.
Not working out.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. I mean, everything comes with a pro and a con. So.
Yeah.
If you come
We're
on this,
testing it out.
if you come on this board and you're not willing to work where you're assigned or whatever, then you're in the wrong place. You know, if you come, that means you come here with all
Right.
do something else.
Right.
So
I want to say
That's a great point.
I want to use that language only because if a person has an interest, let's say they do work in a certain space, but maybe not saying first come, first serve, but you already have. So, you know, people just, they go for their interests as people.
Right.
People.
I mean, for this, with our new board members, it's going to be helpful because I had 0 interest in Health and Human Services. I now have 5. She's about to be a doctor, by the way, like 5 people in the mental health sector that is going to be useful for us. Right away, they've all said they want to go in Health and Human Services. I've never had that.
Yeah.
And so we are at a point right now that people are willing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna get actually a doctor in social.
Right.
But remember, when you go on that, you might be interested in you hear the subjects that are being discussed in the organizations that come in. There will be time when you have to recuse yourself.
Yeah. I'm gonna go over that.
Just let me know.
Yeah, I know. I heard about it in the stories.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, I think that helped clear that up.
Yeah.
That gave me an understanding of like you guys should do.
Because I went to be many times on the health and human services, I had to recuse myself.
Go to that.
Well, no,
Excuse me, I had a question. Sorry, I had a question.
Who's that?
a question for the past, 15 minutes. I had my hand up, but
Oh, we called you, Sheila.
no, I didn't have my hand up at that time when you thought you saw it.
No,
That
no,
wasn't
they
it.
saw it up and we called you.
Okay, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
The floor is yours.
I did have an issue with, I was supposed to be on the Health and Human Services Committee, and for the past year, I kept asking when was there going to be a meeting? We've never had a meeting.
There wasn't a meeting.
Right, and also with probably education and library, I've never really seen a meeting with them either. But so I was just wondering.
Sheila had, yeah, she had a few.
Well, I'm not part of the education committee, but I've never had a health and human services meeting, and I was always inquisitive. Now it seems like, I kind of want to jump ship and go to something else because there never seemed to be any interest. I see land use having a great committee, a few others. So I'm just wondering, I've been there almost pretty much a year now, and I'm still wondering, I still have this kind of a lost feeling, like at what point do I belong? Because the meeting that I'm supposed to be on, I've never had one. And
Matt's sitting across, but that doesn't mean that you won't be able to bring some sort of speaker or bring a matter to the board.
Well, see, nobody's ever mentioned that. I was always depending on, I had a chairman or a chair of that department, and they're supposed to say, okay, we have a meeting, this is what we're going to do. Does anybody have any interest that we should bring up? And I did see at one point in the early part of last year, I think it was a gentleman or a lady brought up something about the internet and some telephone stuff and the wiring. And they were having something about wiring, and it was getting into, like your brain or something, like with cell phones and all this. This was about a year ago. I've never heard anything else. That doesn't sound familiar to anybody? It's been pretty much about a year ago. And that's the last thing I ever heard anything about Health and Human Services. And I didn't even know who brought that person in. So, and the whole part about combining the committees, I think really as adults, whether it's going to take a long time or a short time, the same way when you have people stand up at the desk and from the community and you have to talk 2.5 to 3 minutes, then it should be regulated. We're all adults. Why should we stay there 3 and 4 hours because your conversation is longer than the next? Regulate it. We're adults. Regulate it. If it only takes 2 hours, after a certain amount of time, you're out, the next one's in. Let's move it along. We're all volunteers and we should be able to handle that. Nobody should be there till 12 o'clock because everybody needs to say something, just your time is over. Let's move on to the next thing. And there's no reason why those 3 or 4 committees that you're trying to get together can't work. We're all grown.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Sheila.
I'll reach out to you.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Joan.
Okay,
I
so
have a question. Now that we're combining all these committees, will we have one name instead of 4 names? For instance, Health and Human Services, Education and Youth Services, Libraries and Cultural Affairs Committee. Can we have just one name for each committee, for each combined committee?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Because now the naming, right? She's asking, is there anything anywhere that says that we can't just say committee 1, committee 2, committee 3?
Well, people know what it's about. Sometimes the bylaws are a little bit silent on certain things. Like right now, the committees are all named in the bylaws. So I think we're gonna have to do better than 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Going back to what George said, makes sense regarding the municipal committee and the planning committee. Because municipal could be anything that's to do with city agencies, hospitals, anything. Then planning.
Didn't we come up with certain names? Didn't we suggest some? Well, George can have to move it back.
I think I didn't print off my entire CB12. Sorry.
Because we should present that all at one time. So what George said, would that still fit? The planning, what was the other one,
The
George?
municipal committee, right, and planning committee.
Problem with that is that you have committee 1 and committee 2 and committee 3 all have municipal services in it.
What would be another?
Listen, what I was going to say before, which I never got to finish my point, was it doesn't sound like you consolidate communities to general point since you have all these names and you're creating co-chairs. It just sounds like you're reducing the number of days on our calendar. So, for example, we have 13 calendar days of potential committee meetings. We're just reducing and saying, oh, if any one of these 3 committees in committee 3 have a meeting, this is the day to do it. Because this is their joint meeting day. The same with committee 1. And then I was concerned when somebody said, oh, we'll just wait until next month. There are some things. The reason land use gets a lot of top billing is because they're on timelines. We have ULURPs, we have the City of Yes tax amendments, and we have certain days to fulfill those obligations. Same thing with transportation. So if you have something that's coming before the land use committee and you have transportation in there and DEP needs a vote or DDC or, again, I'm all for the reduction. I'm just saying for planning purposes, for Ursula and I's, common sense, how are we structuring this? Because I agree, there should be, I'll even go with committee 1, 2, 3. Like, it doesn't matter to me the name. It's just, you have to have something that people understand what it is, what the function of that committee is.
Municipal service.
So what was the difference if we did the two committees that you said we did planning and we did the other one?
There was no difference other than I had 4 committees. I know that Carl likes to say I had 2, I had 4. We have bylaws state that we have certain obligations, which is everybody goes to the full board meeting.
Yeah.
Standard. That's 1 meeting. We have to do public hearings. Nobody has spoken about public hearings tonight about the obligation of having that.
It's there.
Of having it. So we have to have a public hearing. Now, public hearing requirements are different. Public hearing quorum is not the same as a full board. You only need 20% for a public hearing of board members. So theoretically, any 20% of 47 who show up, it doesn't have to be a set standard, would be what I had proposed to answer your question was that half of the board would be on the public hearing committee, and it would be a standalone committee. And timing wise, because we have other obligations, Alfredo always goes to the precinct council meeting. All of our meetings would happen, all of our committee meetings would happen in the second week, the same week that the precinct council meeting meets. And the reason for that is that it would give board members or committee chairs the opportunity to write their minutes so that we would have them in time for the second week or the 4th meeting, the 4th Thursday of the full board meeting. So that if anybody had questions before then, the board members could ask us. We could then send them to the chairs, and then you could have a discussion. But again, I'm fine with this. I'm just saying, to me, when you're visualizing it and you're putting it together, and to your point, Carla, the bylaws state that there's 11 or 13 committees. This is what this meeting is. It's a reduction of committees. So this is your opportunity to basically erase committees and start over from scratch.
So was yours with the 2 committees, was yours like erasing some committees and
Well, no, it was, so basically it was taking all the committees that do municipal services. So I forget how I have it. I printed and sent it to the board members.
Yes, I could. It's this one. It's on here. But what I'm trying to say is that you still have the same kind of, the same structure, we just have to inform. I'm saying that one.
You don't have the same structure because so municipal services would literally just handle things that were before city agencies.
Okay, it's in land use and economic.
No, that would be a different committee.
So that's, okay, so
Parks and Transportation would have a more similar background as environmental concerns as well, based on how we address. When sanitation comes to us, we send them to Carla. If DEP comes to us, we send them to Carla. unless it's a capital project where they're doing a wastewater runoff into the Hutchinson River, then he goes to transportation because he does capital projects.
Okay, just to consolidate this, I don't want to take up too much
Yeah,
time. So your first one, so land use was in what?
it was in the planning committee. So planning committee would just deal with zoning, planning, housing issues.
Land use, housing.
Yeah, economic development, because economic development could be, we want a Chick-fil-A. And how do we plan for that?
I understand that, but wouldn't we still have the same issue of like land use moving for a very long time?
Yeah, we will.
Like I'm saying, like the issue
Still a
that.
problem.
It does. The issue is, all of our meetings, if it's an issue that's worth discussing, are gonna take a long time, whether you had 20 people on it, or if you have 3 people on it.
The difference is that with just 2, instead of maybe 4, it could be 8 hours, because now you have way more in one.
Yeah, no,
So that's why we were like, we may have to try 3 instead of just.
No, understandable, but I'm saying the point that George is raising is the same issue, no matter.
Yeah.
Like, if it was his, you know, here to justify any other. So to me, it's like, well, I thought that we were kind of not aware of it. It was something that we're just gonna have to like figure out like how we're gonna.
We are.
Yeah.
We are. We're going to have to test it out and see if it works. If not, we come back and figure out another route.
Yeah, I mean, outside of land use, isn't most of what we do is handle issues around municipal services.
Well, no, but the thing which is important, that again, you like kind of not, Beatrice actually spoke to our chair, you're appointing new people to all of these committees. Not new people like new, everybody, not everybody, you're starting with there's 0 members on each committee and we're appointing people. So John has, how many people on your committee? 5?
That's like 4.
4. So they theoretically don't have to be on that committee number 1. They could be on committee number 2. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're starting with a blank slate. You're gonna put however many, put 15 in each committee, plus whatever the standing ones are. And I'm just saying, you spoke about like, you have the power in the bylaws to appoint board members to committees and the chair to committees. That's not something that should be up for vote.
Yeah, no, that's,
Yeah, 'cause we got to move. So I do understand interest, but
Yeah.
we got to get things done.
okay. So we have one motion to accept the proposed new 3-committee structure and a second, but then we expanded that to be, to include leadership of those committees. So can somebody give me a hand
Well,
here?
we say just leadership as designated by the committee, by the board chairs. Let her decide who she wants to run the committees.
Okay, so motion to accept new committee structure. And then, well, I mean, we don't have to make a motion to say that our chairperson has the right to.
Yeah, no, I mean,
So that doesn't need to be said.
doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be said, yeah. So the motion is just to accept the new 3-committee structure. Okay, it was,
Just be careful. You still have the standing.
but we can't touch those.
Yeah, there's nothing that says by executive has to exist.
Well, the bylaws currently say,
We already had a conversation about bylaws, so we'll raise that in a different meeting.
yeah, well, yeah, like try and spread it around, George. And discipline we can't touch because that's mandated by these laws. So the motion is simply to accept the new 3-committee structure. Is that what we're all agreeing?
Yes.
Okay, so voting time. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I can't vote.
You will have a board meeting, a full board meeting.
John is aye. John is aye. Judith is aye. And Tony, you're not. You vote.
I said that.
Oh, sorry. I couldn't hear you. No.
I just said, it.
You're not on camera.
Yeah, we actually in favor to vote. Okay, so motion passed.
That's the shortest meeting.
Really? This is this is so different from our club.
oh, this is, we'll be having some nice lengthy meetings.
Like a full board. It's a nice practice for other parts of the.
No,
Well, we finally, I think it's a good.
yeah, and stuff.
Alrighty,
You
good
guys
meeting,
adjourned?
guys.
Yeah.
George, you gonna stop this?
Yeah.
You gonna do it?
Like, it says I'm unmuted, but
Right here?
yeah, the X.
I can stop.
I see Brian on the 26th.
Yeah.
Oh, see, that's what I got. Let me try and do it.
Go to the.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
Oh, you did right? ¿Qué pasa?
Probably need to walk. How do I turn this thing off, Alfredo?
What? No, let George gonna do it.